Front pages of our newspapers this morning. We'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper, where the lead story says, it talks about the 5.6 billion naira wheat project scam. It says ex-Nirsal Boss arrested 11 months after sacking. You have the riders nabbed lobbying for reappointment, bolt away 32 official vehicles. The DSS says no comment on that. You find all the details on the front page and also on page 4. Above the lead story, Wike Fubara feud continues to put Rivers on edge, and that's on page 12. You have also consider economic indices before banks recapitalization. Experts tell CBN. So that's a part of what we discussed earlier on the show. Confusion as Lagos-Abuja flight diverted over weather on page 35. You also have FG raises committee to crash cooking gas price. Tinubu pledges full university autonomy. And then Catholic priest remanded for impregnating a teenager in Anambra. And the last story there, ECOWAS court orders amendment of Nigeria Press Council Act on page 6. These are the main stories on the front page of Daily Trust today.
Let's take a look at the Daily Sun this morning. The major story there says banks jittery over fresh recapitalization plan. The riders there says the OPS, others ask CBN to peg banks' capital base at 100 billion naira, and DMBs begin merger talks. You find all the stories on page 2 of the newspaper there. Now we have a Joku's 12th memorial, Igbo heavily indebted to Jonathan. Bianca says ex-president stood by Igbo leader in life and death. You find this on page 26. There's a pictorial of, we'll move from that pictorial. Beside it, we see Abuja residents on edge as bandits terrorize 4 area cancel, and beggars banned in the federal secretariat. We have 87 trillion naira debt, suspend loans of 2 Nigeria's 36 states over misspending, Sarab tells the World Bank. Edo IGR to hit 70 billion in 2024, says Obaseki, and takes Edo Economic Summit to China. Also woos investors with the business-friendly reforms and other incentives. The Deputy Speaker, Kalu Mole's bill for national apprenticeship scheme. We have gunmen kidnapped murder a monarch. Sad situation there in Imo State. Enugu residents center loud mba for addressing water scarcity and call for more reticulations and warn the vandals. You find this on page 28. There's the federal government steps into cooking gas crisis, sets up committee to crash the price. I mean, that's something to look at. We have the 3,000 barrels of crude oil lost to November 15 offshore oil spill. That's according to the Nostra. Now, these are some of the stories on the Daily Sun this morning. All right, let's move on to the Nation this morning. The major story says CBN revises measures to cut food and energy inflation. Kadeso to unveil plans, and also the government cautions producers against exports amid soaring gas price. You'll find all these stories in the Nation newspaper there. Below the headmask, it says ECOWAS condemns attempt to truncate democratic government in Sierra Leone. Shaibu's declaration renews Edo 2024 battle with Obaseki and clash of camps likely at venue. At the bottom there, we see United Nigeria Airlines explains diversion of Lagos-Abuja plane to Asaba. That's another thing that has been making Nigerians talk, especially on different social media platforms. Above the headmask there, it says $134 million AFDB's loan will boost dry season farming and also the food security. We have the federal government woos foreign investors with 100% FX repatriation. You find this on page 8. Adeleke's absence on anniversary day raises dust in Oshun, and NDLEA swoops on drug party and arrest organizers in Oshogbo. Now, these are some of the stories on the Nation's newspaper this morning.
All right. Now let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper this morning, where you have the lead story. It talks about, it says, banks brace for new monetary policy conduct regulation. You have that, all that on page 6. So the story talks about the Cardoso's returns CBN to traditional monetary policy regime, price stability, new FX guidelines and legislations, new capital base for Nigerian banks, monetary tightening to continue till the second quarter of 2024, a new framework for payment service policies. You also have below that, coup scare. Sierra Leone declares curfew as ECOWAS condemn plot. NBS imperative of creating stronger, vibrant data system. Goba aftershocks. Kogi queries Monarch as APC gives Kano AG ultimatum. Women lawyers canvass castration of rapist. You have also Seraph urges World Bank to suspend loans to states. The judiciary and justice, the judiciary and justice, Tijo Muhammad's concern. You'd find, some analysis on that on the page 12 of the Guardian newspaper today. Well, that's that for the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
All right. This, of course, would start by reviewing, the front pages of the National Dailies with Suleiman Obangayade, CEO of Sky Limits Media Group, and editor and former deputy president of Nigerian Guild of Editors. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me this morning.
All right. Let's start with the major story in the front page of the Daily Trust newspapers that says Ex-Nirsal Boss arrested about 11 months after sacking. I mean, what is your take on that? Don't you think it took too long on holding someone accountable for something, almost a year before holding him accountable for something that affected lives of people? I mean, we're talking about the farmers that could have benefit from that.
Yeah. Okay, they say it is better late than never. So the fact that he has now been arrested 11 months after being sacked is still commendable. Let me also start by commending the Tinubu administration for the clear intent to bring to book those who dip their hands in our collective patrimony, taking everyone for a fool, thinking they could run away with it. And this particular story shows the audacity of some of the corrupt in Nigeria. The fact that this same person that has been sacked 11 months ago was arrested at a point of lobbying, trying to lobby for another appointment or appointment into the very office he was sacked from. It tells you about the audacity of some of the people, holders of power at various levels in Nigeria. In 2018, let's take a little bit look at what really happened. In 2018, the government of Nigeria, through the Central Bank of Nigeria, earmarked 5.6 billion naira to boost farming production in Kano and Jigawa states. Farmers were mobilized and they cleared their farms, waiting for farming implements as well as fertilizer. Unfortunately, none was provided. Then a few months later, in faraway Ras Al United Arab Emirates, the son of the MD, or the immediate first MD, a guy called Imran, was arrested by the security services of the UAE, driving in a Lamborghini Urus car worth $400,000. He was also wearing one of the most expensive wristwatches in the world, at the time. And the same boy who was attending I think RAC American University in Ras Al Khaimah was found to have engaged in intense money laundering. I don't know for who, was it for his father or for whoever. He was arrested by the security services in the UAE. He was a student, I think, up to 2016, but they kept monitoring his account and they saw humongous figures being credited, and they arrested him. That same boy was also inducted in Nigeria for a 2 billion naira ICT contract scam, you know. So these are the kind of things that happen in Nigeria, and especially under the immediate first administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. Muhammadu Buhari's case is one that I will say somehow defies nature, because they say a system gets rotten from the head, something like that. I've forgotten exactly what the adage says. Yeah. But unfortunately for Buhari, he was clean. He is still seen as largely clean, but he allowed a lot of rot to be perpetrated under his watch. He ran probably the most corrupt administration in the history of Nigeria. It was under his watch that this kind of things have happened, and there are a lot more that the tinubu administration will need to summon the courage to investigate and to arrest the perpetrators. I hear the government is looking for money. I heard the NSA saying the government was broke at the time they took over. They shouldn't be broke, because there are trillions naira that have been siphoned by many officials of the Buhari administration. Those guys should be arrested and be made to return the monies they have looted.
All right. Well, quite a number of stories also, even though we've talked about the recent statements by the central bank governor at the dinner of the Chartered Institute of Bankers Association, Chartered Institute of Bankers, where he made some very, very critical statements that is likely going to have, or I would say is already having an impact on the economy, talking about recapitalization for banks. And reports are showing from the Punch newspaper, if you take a look at the lead story, it says banking consolidation, mega banks boost 10 trillion naira capital base, others seek fresh investors. You have the Daily Sun newspaper leading with the story that says banks jittery over fresh recapitalization plan, with the riders, others, OPS, others ask CBN to peg banks' capital base at 100 billion naira. Then you also have DMB's begin merger talks. So that's the banks are talking about merger among themselves. Also, you have the Tribune also lead with a similar story. Why CBN governor is right on bank recapitalization expert. And also the Guardian is also leading with the story around that. So obviously it's a major story for today. Economists are already analyzing the pros and cons of this. And one of the fears that have been expressed by two of them that we just had on the show is that this whole idea of asking commercial banks to increase their capital base is likely going to see a collapse of some of the smaller banks, what they call the tier 3 banks, and then they will be swallowed up by the tier 1 banks and so on. Should we be scared about the disruption that is likely going to be caused by this move?
Well, for me, I don't think we should be scared. The Tinubu administration, or specifically President Tinubu, has set a target of $1 trillion economy in the next 7 years anyway. So I wouldn't say by the time he hands over, because I don't know whether he's going to win a second term in 2027. But the target is set to be made in the next 7 years. There is no way that target can be made with banks that are weak in financial base. 100 billion naira that people are bandying about does not measure up to, the minimum capital base of a bank that can compete globally. And our banks should be able to compete at the global space. Even in the Nigerian economic space, there are so many gaps, banks being unable to, give out loans to productive sectors of the economy because of their weak capital base. So talking about the smaller banks, somehow a solution, because of the fear that these smaller banks could be consumed by the big ones, I don't think it is enough for us to continue to run our banking system on a weak base. You know, it should be strengthened. So I fully aligned myself with the position of the Central Bank Governor Cardoso that the capital base should be strengthened, should be increased, so that these banks can compete globally, so that they can service the Nigerian economy better than they are already doing.
All right, let's take a look at politics. I mean, there's been a bit of chaos, in Edo in a few months back, where we saw how Obaseki and his deputy Shaibu were going at each other, and the rumor that allegedly was that Shaibu was intending to, come out and also bid for that particular seat of Obaseki. Well, it has been confirmed, and right now there's been a renewed battle again, and one of them is that the deputy governor has been, all his booking for hotels in order to do his campaign has been cancelled. So how do you think this would not affect the people of Edo and also, the loss of properties? We saw how the situation happened between what's his name, Wiki, the minister, and Fubara in River State. So how can we avoid that kind of chaos?
Okay, for me, if there is one person that I did not expect to play God in politics, it is Governor Obaseki, Godwin Obaseki. I, in particular, supported him fully, writing articles in his support when former Governor Adams Oshimele was trying to stop him. So I did not expect him to try to play God as to who his successor is going to be. And this issue about successors, I think the incumbent governors ought to by now learn a lesson from happenings all over the polity. In practically all the states where governors have anointed successors, what happens or what follows is bitter disappointment. So why must you anoint a successor? For example, I remember Minister of FCT Wike saying, I think about 2 years ago, that he was not going to anoint a successor, that he was going to allow the system to play itself out.
Why should we even use that word, to successor? I mean, it's not a monarchy system. This is politics, and people should be able to decide on who they want. I mean, last time, I think in the Daybreak show, we had a conversation about how the primaries is even conducted. Ayuba, you remember where we say the people don't even have a say on who is brought out from the parties to decide, and they feel that the people outside should have that kind of vote. So who are you to even determine that this person should be a successor in the first place?
Unfortunately, that's what our governors have been doing. The only person maybe in Nigeria's history, only about President Buhari, let me say President Buhari. Erdogan was not alive. He did not see through even his first tenure. But President Buhari, of course, did not influence who becomes his successor. But at the governmental level, I mean at the state level, you find practically all the governors desperately working hard by hook and by crook, trying to impose on the people someone that they favor, someone that they think is going to cover their dirty tracks. It's all about legacy, and most of this legacy is ruinous, is a legacy of serious ruination, and they don't want these dirty tracks to be uncovered. I mean, so that is why they do everything left, right, and center to ensure only those that the people succeed them. And look at what is happening now. It doesn't necessarily work out that way. Look at River State, that you also mentioned, Pubara and Wike. Wike obviously thought Pubara, being his former accountant general, was going to cover his tracks, was going to do his bidding. Unfortunately, there is a limit to the kind of dictation that an incumbent will take. Let me give you a small example. There used to be a governor who finished his tenure in 2007. He was a governor of a Southeast state from 1999 to 2007. And he ensured that one of his key aides succeeded him. But you know what happened afterwards? This former governor will run to his village far away from the state capital and summon the governor every now and then. When the governor arrives, he will be told that Oga is sleeping. And he will have to wait for hours until that former governor wakes up. And when he wakes up, he will now issue him directives as to what he was going to do. In Rivers, it's almost the same thing. There is an allegation that what prompted all these things is merely an appointment of 3 persons that Governor Pubara did without Wike's authorization. So the whole issue is once you are done with your term, allow your successor, even if he's your own son. Even if he's your own son, you can't force him to, take your dictations all the time. Of course, you can guide him or her from time to time, but you cannot say or insist that the person must toe your path. That's the problem.
All right. Well, there's also another story here that I'm seeing on the Guardian newspaper. Over the weekend, we saw the commemoration of the, ending of violence against women, a day that was commemorated in that regard. And women lawyers are canvassing for castration of rapists. This is an argument, should I say debate now, that has lingered for some time now. People calling for castration of rapists and so on. And the belief that this will curb, or I would say to an extent reduce the cases of rape that we are recording in the country. What do you make of this call, and what's your own take?
Well, first of all, rape is one of the most heinous crimes that anyone could commit anywhere on the globe. So for me, I fully align myself with the position being canvassed that rapists should be castrated. You see, there is serious need for us to enact laws, that deter criminals from committing crimes. If the laws are soft, for example, you have resources, you commit rape, you are jailed. All you need to do probably is to, give heavy bribe, and you could end up having maybe 1 year, 2 years as your punishment instead of the 20 years or so that our laws provide for. Lawyers or the judges themselves will find a leeway, always creating a lacuna which they will leverage upon, to ensure that the perpetrator, in as much as he has resources, escapes.
But it's looking more like the challenge with the issue of rape cases is more with the prosecution, of the offenders, rather than the punishment itself, because it looks like the laws have taken care of the issue of the severity of the punishment, but then proving the case in court remains a big challenge. Do you think that our security forces, maybe police or the prosecutors, have what it takes really to, see to the execution of people who are, offenders who are involved in rape?
Well, I think that has to do with the need for our government to help these prosecutors. I mean, especially the policemen that prosecute such offenses. Abroad, especially in, let's say, United States, United Kingdom, once you commit rape, it can easily be proven scientifically. It's not just by hearing the testimony of the victim and the alleged perpetrator. They use scientific means to simply prove it. Even if a rape case takes place 10 years ago, they have a means of establishing it. As far back as 10 years, there have been cases like that that have been proven, and the perpetrators are now in jail. So we should also evolve a system where perpetrators of these heinous crimes are nabbed using scientific means, rather than the oral testimonies that can
easily be manipulated.
That can easily be manipulated.
Indeed. All right. Thank you so much, Suleiman Obagaya, for giving us your take on the front pages, of course, of the national dailies. The CEO, Sky Limits Media Group editor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right.